Hello everybody and welcome back to the 1860 Club. Today we have Aaron Whear with us, one of the real legends of the club. In fact, one of three who've played 200 games in the first. Welcome, Aaron.
Thanks, Lee. Great to be here.
It certainly is. Your story is quite incredible. Your story actually spans 40 odd years of consecutive playing, so that in itself is pretty unique.
I know. I'm sort of feeling it every day, but just love the game of cricket.
You must be passionate about it.
Yes, that's one word for it.
Now, you played with Preston on two occasions. Starting off in 1993, you had 2 years, and then you went down to went back to Premier cricket for a couple of years, and then came back to Preston.
Yeah.
You then played 200 first 11 games, so you're one of three to have achieved that with Dave Robb and, of course, the great man himself, Eddie Ruternfelds. And you've won a championship and a premiership at the club, and played in some incredible sides. So I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit about your experiences.
Yeah, no, looking forward to sharing.
Now, where did you get your start in cricket, Aaron? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look, I started as a 10-year-old with Research Cricket Club in the Diamond Valley comp, and I was really fortunate to play with a guy who a lot of people would know, Adam Dale, who went on to play for Australia. So for me at Research, I had 6 years. We won 3 premierships. We lost an under-14 grand final. I still remember it like it was yesterday because it was the only game we lost for the season. We lost it by 2 runs. So yeah, played at Research all my juniors. My last year of juniors, I had the privilege of playing B grade all year as well. So I took 20 odd wickets in the B grade seniors.
And you went down to Northcote and got into the Dowling team.
Yeah, so again, followed Adam. Look, you know, I had Adam up on a pedestal as a youngster. He was such a good player. So he went down to play at Northcote. It was the only time I ever got one up on him, Lee. Like I actually won the bowling averages for the Dowling Shield. I actually dropped a catch off Adam, which would have meant that he would have won the bowling averages. I certainly didn't do it deliberately, but yeah, that's my one claim to fame, is that yeah, won the bowling averages over him at the Dowling Shield level.
So you played at Northcote then for a couple of years?
Yeah, so what happened after that Dowling year is my first full year of cricket. First full year of seniors. In my last year of under 16s, I was playing juniors in the morning and seniors in the afternoon, as I said. But first full year of seniors was at Northcote. I played fourths and fifths. The fifths was actually a very good side. A lot of guys that played in that side ended up being very good cricketers. And that fifth 11 side, even though it was essentially a junior team, ended up winning a premiership. So that was a very fond memories of that first year of senior cricket.
And you pushed your way up, had some terrific performances to get sort of promoted, and you finished up being recruited into the Victorian under-19 training squad.
Yeah, look, I did. It was, well, there's a little bit of story behind that. I won't go on too much. What happened at the end of that year at Northcote, my dad was actually relocated to work in Queensland. So I headed up to Queensland and did my year 12 up there. So I had a couple of years playing A-grade cricket in Toowoomba, which is like the equivalent of Geelong. And then I came back to Melbourne, and I rang up Northcote to see if I could get a game. And I was sort of halfway through a game, and they said, look, we probably can't help you out this week, but we might be able to help you out next week. And the reality was they rang me back because someone had pulled out of their fourths and their fifths were halfway through a game. So ended up getting a game against Collingwood. And little did I know it at the time, but one of my great mates, Shane Day, was playing that game. And anyway, I ended up making 73 not outlay, and I had the distinction of running out Shane in that game, which he hasn't quite forgiven me for. And then 2 weeks later, I got promoted to the thirds, and I played against Keith Stackpole's, one of his sons, for Collingwood in that fourth 11 game. Played against his other son in the third 11 for Carlton, and I took I think 5 for 24 against Carlton in that game, and lo and behold, I actually ended up in the Victorian under-19 squad. So all of a sudden, I've gone from just coming back into Victoria to training at the MCG on a Monday night with the likes of Adam Dale and Earl Eddings, and I think Brad Hodge was in that squad. And yeah, it was quite a whirlwind.
And you bowled offies and batted high up the order. What sort of off-break bowler were you?
Well, if you talk to a lot of my former teammates, they'd say I was fairly much a straight break bowler. So, look, I dispute that. I used to turn the odd one, but it'd be fair to say that I thought spinning the ball square was overrated. Look, my main skill was really as a tie down bowler. So, look, on my day I could turn the ball, but a lot of the time I wasn't a big turner of the ball. I really relied on tying batsmen up, and really I think that most batsmen would say that 80% of the time you get yourself out. My job, I felt as a bowler, was to just tie down and try and frustrate players out.
After a couple of years at Northcote, you found your way to Preston. So how did that come about?
I did. I still remember it like it was yesterday. So again, I mentioned my great mate Shane Day. So Shane and I had quite similar paths. Like we played a lot of third and fourth 11 cricket, and in fact quite a bit of second 11 cricket as well. But there was one particular season where we both found ourselves, I can't remember, it was either the thirds or the fourths, but we're starting to get to an age where, that probably wasn't super desirable. And I pretty much knew that Greg Hobber was going to coach at Preston. And I talked Daisy into going down and playing at Preston. So, you might be able to thank me for Daisy's contributions at the club, because he didn't know what he was going to do, and I sort of pushed him that way. And then, a few rounds into the season, I thought, it's not really working for me either. And I rang Greg, and I still remember like it was yesterday. Greg came over to my nan's place. I was living with my nan in Bullants, and he brought the forms over and he signed me up on the spot. So, that's how I found myself at Preston. It was largely, Greg Hobber.
And did you walk into the firsts?
Greg said, look, because there was a few games into the season, he said, you're going to have to play a minimum of one in the seconds. And this is one of the great jokes. Like, if you ever interview Kevin Lowe or Andrew Bennett or some of those guys, like, the joke, which really wasn't that funny for me, was that if any catch was ever going to go down off a bowler, it would have been off my bowling. Right. I'm sure all bowlers say this, by the way, but I did have an astronomical percentage of catches dropped. Anyway, I think I took one or two for not that many, but I had 7 or 8 catches dropped in my first game and the second. So on the strength of a one for, I found myself in the first the next week.
So this is about 92, 93?
Look, it was circa that. It might have been 93, 94, but we're all getting a bit older, Lee, so I wouldn't hold myself to that, but somewhere around that time. Yeah,
okay. And the side was pretty strong.
Oh, absolutely. I remember going into that side, and we had blokes like obviously Greg was a legend of the club, and Rowan Porpolai, who I know you've interviewed before, super player. Ravi Ratnayaka, I think my first year at the club, Ravi took something like 28 wickets after Christmas. So when it was very fortunate enough to go into a very, very strong side.
You played with Rohan.
Yep.
You would have watched from the sidelines a lot of his, or most of his innings down there. Did you bat with him often?
I was typically batting at that time probably 7 or 8 most of the games, and bowling a few offies. Rowan batted 3, so I can't remember batting with Rowan that often, but certainly all the stories you hear about him. Super batsman, fantastic in the field as well. Really good player, really good player.
So you had roughly about 2 years with the club before you went down to South Melbourne.
That's right. So again, any of the guys that know me, certainly in my younger days, I was a little bit of a man about town, Lee, you might say. And one particular night I was at the depot, and I'd had quite a few drinks, and I ran into several players that I played before and against. And next thing you know, introducing me to a guy by the name of Sean Brown, who was coach of South Melbourne at the time. And yeah, the next thing you know, I'd been recruited to South Melbourne. But the good thing is that a few years down the track, I was actually able to replay the favour and recruit Sean back to Preston, or at least have a reasonable hand in him coming back to Preston.
So the ledger's even.
Something like that.
Yeah, because Sean played about 9 years.
I did, and Sean again was a super player. Like, he was a fantastic coach at South Melbourne. I really learned a lot under Sean, and yeah, I'm still lucky to count him as one of the best mates these days. I talk to him a couple of times a week.
Yeah, it must have made a big impression on you playing Premier cricket, to learn the disciplines and the tricks of the top players.
Oh, 100%. Like, in my first stint at Northcote, a guy by the name of Mick O'Sullivan was coach. So Mick ended up coaching Victoria. Then the guy that replaced him was Rodney Hogg, which I think everyone would know Rodney. Greg Hobble was captain of the club during that period. Grant Gardner was a senior player who played for Victoria. Gerard Dowling, obviously one of he played cricket at Preston, a very famous name, was a senior player. So the time at Northcote was invaluable. And then I think I became, like, probably was a little bit of a flip side. Like, I probably missed out on at least the opportunity to play in a premiership or two at Preston when I went back down to South Melbourne. But that time at South Melbourne definitely made me a better cricketer. Like, I ended up winning a second 11 bowling average down there. And, you know, as I said, Sean was a big influence on me, playing, or not playing, but training alongside guys like Wayne Phillips, who played for Australia. Damien Fleming didn't train that often, but I was obviously a test incumbent at the time. And yeah, I think some of those habits and disciplines definitely made me a better player when I did come back to Preston for my second stint.
Yeah. And how did you get back to Preston?
Again, I probably recruited myself back, to be honest, Lee. So I'd had that really good year where I'd won the second 11 bowling average at South Melbourne. And, you know, if Sean's to be believed, I was actually picked in the first. And then all of a sudden there was a bit of debate, and I said, look, we'll just give him one more week. And that one more week never quite happened. And then, yeah, I looked like 2 years down the track, I played mainly second 11 cricket, but I'd been selected in the thirds, and I looked like I might be getting stuck there. And I thought, you know what, I'm probably a bit old at the age of, say, 27, 28 to be playing Premier third 11. So I contacted Steve Malloy, who was the coach at the time, and said, look, you know, I'd really probably like to come back. And it was a bit similar to the first time I came to the club. He said, look, you're going to have one in the seconds, and then we'll see how we go. And fortunately, we played Yarraville. I think I took, in a one-day game, I think I took 3 for 7 off 9 overs, and was lucky enough to be selected in the first the week after. Yeah.
Now, you played 200 games over the two stints. Can you remember your first game?
I can. It was against Ivanhoe.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I was nervous, Lee. I remember, even though I played a fair bit of Premier cricket, ranging from fourths and thirds, and a fair chunk of second 11 cricket really at Northcote, but I was so nervous. I did think sub-district cricket was a very, very good level of cricket. And I was batting with Greg at the time. I hit a beautiful shot down to fine leg, and I was on 3. And then Lindsay Clay, for those of you that remember Lindsay, I actually just knocked one to a bat pad and got myself out. So yes, wasn't an auspicious debut after 3, and I don't think I even bowled an over, but that was my debut against Ivanhoe at Cromer Street.
What about your last game, your 200th?
Look, I was so fortunate, Lee, both in my 150th game and my 200th game, my teammates did the right thing by me. We won both of those games outright.
Okay.
Which I didn't play in that many outright games, to be honest, but we outrighted, I think it might have been Oakley in my 150th, and we outrighted Brunswick at Brunswick in my 200th. So I don't think I did all that much in my last game. I got a lazy 4 for about 20 against Williamstown in my 199th at Cromer Street. don't think I did a whole lot in the 200, but would certainly remember the fact that we won that game outright. So it was certainly one to celebrate.
Yeah, before we talk about the premierships, what was your most memorable game outside of them in the 200 that you played?
Look, for those of you that know Jeff King, Jeff used to always say, Wheary, I back you in every year for one 6-vote game. So the one that really stands out for me was against Moorabbin. I took 3 for not many, and I got 66. It was actually funny. Like I got sent in as a second night watchman. Greg Hobble was in America for work, and Jeff King was substitute captain. And we bowled Moorabbin out for not that many. All of a sudden, we're 1 for none. He put a night watchman in. We were 2 for none. I was the second night watchman. I went in, and I reckon the first ball I faced, Darren Walker, who played for Victoria, was bowling absolute smoke. I sneaked it straight to second slip, went straight through his hands for a boundary. He went to hospital with a broken hand. And the next thing I knew, I'd made 66. And look, it was probably the closest I ever went to making, you probably hear this from people all the time, but probably the closest I ever went to making a sub-district 100. I was 66 and batting beautifully. And Ravi Ratnayaka, funnily enough, was playing for Moorabbin. And I played and missed it one outside off stump. He went up. The umpire gave me out the over before tea. So I was sort of cheated out in that game for 66. But that was probably my most memorable game. I got the 6 votes off the umpires at the Hatch Medal. And yeah, that was one that I certainly remember.